Let me ask you something. Who are you at war with right now? Is it your circumstances, your past, other people, or is it the version of you that keeps showing up small, that keeps choosing comfort over calling, that keeps making promises at night and breaking them in the morning? Because that's the real enemy, not the world, not your background, not your situation. It's that weak version of yourself that whispers later, that version that negotiates with discipline, that version that settles for average while dreaming of greatness. And if you don't kill that version, it will kill everything you were meant to become. Every day you wake up, there is a decision waiting for you. You either rise into the person your future requires, or you protect the habits that are destroying your potential. There is no neutral ground. You are either building your destiny, or you are burying it. See, most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they keep listening to the weaker voice inside their head, the one that avoids discomfort, the one that runs from responsibility, the one that wants the reward without the work. But greatness doesn't come from what you want. It comes from what you're willing to endure. This is the moment where excuses die. This is the moment where comfort loses its control over your life. This is the moment where you stop negotiating with the future and start commanding it. Because the life you dream about is on the other side of the version of you that must be destroyed. And the question is, are you ready to become dangerous to your old self? Most people believe the greatest battles of their life are happening outside of them, with money, people, circumstances, or opportunity. But the most decisive war is internal. Confrontation with the inner enemy means realizing that the real obstacle standing between you and the life you want is not the world, but the weaker version of yourself that keeps you trapped in the same patterns, the same excuses, and the same comfort zones. This version of you is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, familiar, and convincing. It speaks in reasonable tones. It tells you that tomorrow is a better day to start, that rest is more important than effort, that your situation is special and your struggle deserves an exception. Over time, that voice becomes normal, and once it becomes normal, it becomes dangerous. The weak version of yourself does not destroy your future in one dramatic moment. It does it slowly, quietly, through repeated choices that feel harmless at the time. Skipping the workout, avoiding the hard conversation, choosing entertainment over improvement, choosing fear over growth, choosing comfort over discipline. Each decision seems small, but every one of them is a vote for the person you are becoming. When those votes accumulate, you wake up one day and realize the life you dreamed of is now far away, and the habits you practiced have built a cage around your potential. Confronting this inner enemy requires brutal honesty. It means looking in the mirror without excuses and admitting that your current results are not the product of bad luck or unfair circumstances alone, but the standards you have accepted and the actions you have tolerated. It means recognizing that the same mind that wants success also creates the resistance to doing what success requires. Until you confront that contradiction, nothing changes. The moment of confrontation is uncomfortable because it removes your favorite shelter, self-deception. You can no longer pretend that you don't know what needs to be done. You already know. You know what habits are weakening you. You know which choices are costing you your future. You know which fears are keeping you small. The inner enemy survives only as long as you refuse to acknowledge it. Once you expose it, it loses its power. But confrontation is not enough. The weak version of yourself will not surrender simply because you recognize it. It must be challenged daily through action. Discipline becomes the weapon. Structure becomes the shield. Commitment becomes the contract you sign with your future. Each time you choose the harder path, you weaken the grip of the old self and strengthen the identity of the new one. Over time, the person who once avoided discomfort becomes the person who demands it because they understand that pressure is the price of progress and struggle is the currency of transformation. Would you like me to expand the next key point in the same style? Urgency of time is the moment you finally realize that life is not waiting for you to be ready, comfortable, confident, or certain. Time is moving forward with or without your permission, and every second that passes is a piece of your future that you can never recover. Most people live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if opportunities have no expiration date, as if their energy, health, and motivation will always be available whenever they decide to get serious. But the truth is far more unforgiving. Time is the one resource that cannot be saved, borrowed, or replaced. Once it is spent, it is gone forever, and what you do with today determines what your life will look like years from now. The danger is not in failing fast, but in delaying slow. Procrastination does not feel deadly, which is why it is so powerful. It disguises itself as planning, as preparation, as waiting for the right moment. It convinces you that you are being patient when in reality, you are being passive. Days turn into months, months turn into years, and eventually you look back and wonder how your life ended up so far from what you once imagined. The weak version of yourself thrives on this delay, because as long as nothing changes, it does not have to change either. Urgency is the internal alarm clock that wakes you up to this reality. It is the understanding that the cost of waiting is higher than the cost of trying. That discomfort now is far cheaper than regret later. That starting imperfectly today is infinitely more powerful than dreaming perfectly tomorrow. When urgency enters your mindset, excuses lose their grip. You stop asking if you feel ready and start asking what must be done. You stop negotiating with fear and start moving despite it. You stop consuming motivation and start producing results. This sense of urgency does not create panic. It creates focus. You begin to see your time differently. You guard your hours more fiercely. You choose your commitments more carefully. You distance yourself from distractions that steal your attention and people who dilute your purpose. You no longer waste your prime years chasing comfort when you know they were meant for building something that lasts. Urgency also sharpens your decisions. When you understand that time is limited, you stop tolerating relationships that drain you, habits that weaken you, and environments that keep you small. You stop postponing the hard work because you finally accept that the perfect moment will never arrive. The moment is now, and it always has been. The most successful people in the world are not the most gifted, the luckiest, or the most confident. They're the ones who developed an unshakable respect for time and an unrelenting sense of urgency about their own potential. They live as if their future is watching their present, taking notes, because it is responsibility and ownership begin the moment you stop looking outward for explanations and start looking inward for answers. Most people want the rewards of success, but resist the weight of accountability that comes with it. They want confidence without discipline, respect without consistency, growth without discomfort. But the reality is that nothing meaningful is built without ownership. The moment you accept full responsibility for your life, you reclaim your power. Until then, you remain at the mercy of circumstances, waiting for someone or something to rescue you. Taking responsibility means understanding that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond, what you do next, and what direction your life takes from this point forward. Blaming the past, other people, the system, or bad luck might feel relieving in the moment, but it quietly robs you of your future. Every excuse you accept becomes a barrier between who you are and who you could be. Ownership breaks that barrier. It says, this is my life, these are my choices, and from here on I decide the outcome. When you operate from ownership, your mindset shifts from victim to leader. You no longer ask who is responsible. You declare that you are. You stop waiting for motivation and start creating structure. You stop needing permission and start building momentum. You no longer measure yourself by intentions, but by actions. The world does not respond to what you hope for. It responds to what you consistently do. Responsibility forces you to become a person of action. Ownership also means confronting the uncomfortable truth that your current results are largely the product of your habits, your standards, and your daily decisions. This is not meant to shame you, but to empower you. If your choices created your present, then new choices can create your future. This realization is where transformation begins. You stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as self-respect. You stop avoiding difficult conversations and start having them. You stop settling for excuses and start demanding results from yourself. As you grow in responsibility, your confidence deepens. You trust yourself because you keep the promises you make to yourself. You become reliable to your own goals. You no longer feel lost because you know you are in control of your direction. This sense of ownership becomes the foundation of your character. People notice it. Opportunities follow it. Leadership grows from it. The strongest people are not those with the fewest problems, but those who refuse to surrender their power to those problems. They take responsibility for their choices, their effort, their growth, and their future. When you choose ownership, you choose maturity, strength, and self-mastery. And from that moment forward, nothing in your life remains accidental. Identity shift is the moment you stop trying to change your life and start changing who you believe you are. Most people approach growth by adjusting their habits, while secretly holding onto the same self-image. And when the pressure arrives, they fall back into old patterns because the identity never changed. True transformation does not begin with behavior. It begins with belief. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. The version of you that created your current life cannot build your next one, which means the person you are becoming must be stronger, more disciplined, more focused, and more courageous than the person you have been. An identity shift requires you to release the labels you have been carrying, the ones formed by past mistakes, limiting experiences, and other people's opinions. Maybe you have been calling yourself unlucky, inconsistent, shy, average, or behind in life. Those words shape your actions more than you realize. The brain works to protect identity, not comfort. If you identify as someone who quits, you will eventually quit. If you identify as someone who struggles, you will find more struggle. When you decide to redefine who you are, your mind begins to search for evidence to support that new identity. This shift is not about pretending or faking confidence. It is about choosing the standards that define your behavior. When you decide that you are the kind of person who finishes what they start, your actions must align. When you decide you are disciplined, your choices change. When you decide you are focused, distractions lose their power. Every decision becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. And the more often you vote the same way, the more permanent that identity becomes. An identity shift is uncomfortable because it forces you to leave behind familiar versions of yourself, even if they are flawed. There is safety in the known, even when the known is painful. Growth demands that you walk away from that comfort and step into uncertainty. You begin to behave like the person you want to be long before you feel like them. You show up differently. You speak differently. You make decisions differently. Over time, those actions rewire your self-concept and your life begins to follow. The most powerful changes in your life will not come from external circumstances, but from internal commitment. When you change how you see yourself, you change what you believe is possible. When you change what you believe is possible, you change what you pursue. When you change what you pursue, you change your future. Identity is the root of destiny, and the moment you choose a new one, everything else begins to shift with it. Commitment to growth through pain is the point where most people turn back, not because they lack ability, but because they underestimate the price of becoming more than they are. Everyone wants change, but very few are willing to suffer for it. Real growth is not comfortable, clean, or convenient. It demands sacrifice. It demands discipline when motivation fades. It demands courage when fear is loud. The person you are becoming is built through the difficult days when quitting feels easier than continuing. That is where your character is forged. Pain is not your enemy. Avoiding it is. The moment you decide that discomfort is no longer something to escape, but something to embrace, everything changes. The gym hurts before it strengthens you. Discipline hurts before it frees you. Learning hurts before it elevates you. Every meaningful transformation follows this pattern. Growth requires pressure, and pressure produces power. The pain you choose now prevents the pain you will regret later. The problem is that most people choose short-term comfort over long-term fulfillment, and the cost of that choice is a life that never reaches its potential. Commitment means you continue even when no one is watching, when there is no applause, when the results are slow, when the doubt is heavy. It means you show up when your mind begs you not to. It means you honor the promises you make to yourself, even when it is inconvenient. This level of commitment builds self-trust, and self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. When you know you will not abandon yourself, you stop fearing failure because you trust your ability to recover, adapt, and rise again. Growth through pain also teaches humility. You learn that progress is not linear, and that setbacks are not signs to stop, but signals to adjust. You become resilient, not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Each time you push through resistance, your tolerance for challenge increases. What once felt impossible becomes normal. What once intimidated you becomes routine. This is how limits are broken, not through dramatic moments, but through consistent endurance. The greatest reward of commitment through pain is not the external success. It is the internal evolution. You begin to respect yourself differently. You carry yourself differently. You speak with more certainty because you have been tested. You move with more purpose because you have suffered for your goals. The person you become in the process is more valuable than the achievement itself. That version of you can handle pressure, rejection, failure, and responsibility because they were built in the fire of effort and perseverance. If you want a life that stands apart, you must be willing to live differently. You must be willing to endure what others avoid. You must be willing to grow in ways that hurt before they heal. This is the path of transformation, the path of strength, the path of becoming everything you were meant to be. So if this message resonated with you and you're committed to becoming your strongest self, ask yourself right now, what are you willing to suffer for? And take that first step today, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.